Hi, welcome everybody to our webcast, Handicapping the Predictions, What to Expect in Local in 2017. I'm Greg Sterling, and today I'm joined by Charles Laughlin and Neil Polachek, former colleagues from the Kelsey Group, BIA Kelsey, years ago. And so we're going to have a lively discussion about some of the predictions that we got this year from LSA members and the broader local marketing ecosystem community. Next slide. The session today is going to run about 40 minutes, and then we'll have some time at the end for comments or questions. You can download the document that we use as the basis of this webinar at the lsa.org Predictions 2017, or you can also search LSA Predictions and find it that way. Next slide. So as I said, we got a lot of submissions this year from a wide range of companies. You can see the individuals and the companies here on this slide. So it's a pretty diverse group of people, and there were a lot of different perspectives and items submitted. And we can't deal with everything, which is why I would encourage you to download the document and take a look yourself. So we've tried to pick out and group some of the predictions. Next slide. Before we get started on 2017, we thought it would be interesting to go back last year and look at some of the predictions that were made, and you know, talk about whether we thought that they had come true or they had not come true. Next slide. So we're going to do a little in the interest of time, we're going to do a kind of a fun exercise here. Each of us is going to vote on whether we think that they've happened, green, whether it's in process, or you know, it hasn't quite happened, yellow, and whether it's just a bad prediction or hasn't happened at all. So we're going to go around and say red, yellow, green, and then in a couple of cases there might be a couple of comments. So so 2016, people said that consumers will continue to outpace brands and marketers, that there's a gap between what consumers are doing and the brands or marketers' ability to reach those people. So, Charlie?
I'm going green.
Neil?
So, good morning. I would go blue, which is, I think, the combination of yellow and green. I think that's
a cop-out. There's no blue on here. You have to pick one.
There's no blue. I think, good morning, I do think I'd agree with Charlie that consumers are still in front of most of the marketplace, but I think the gap is closing. Seems like the gap's closing.
So I vote red. I think that brands are far behind consumers and not meeting consumer expectations at all. Red. All right.
Oh, okay, so we have it, so hold on.
I read it differently. I read it as our consumers still outpacing.
Yes, then
green. Yes. You got what I meant. Green. Yes. All right. On to the next one.
Let's try again.
Okay, on to the next one. Okay, so the conventional search user interface is dead. The desktop has peaked. Mobile is now where the action is. Voice and virtual assistants are changing the nature of search, and the traditional box with blue links is dead. That's the prediction. Neil, what do you say?
I think I'm going to say green, which
I'm
means
say
you agree. It's true.
Yeah. I'm going to go with greenish, which I know is a cop, but I'll say just green because, I mean, I think the desktop search thing has already happened. I mean, that's a done deal. The second bullet point is more in development, I'd say.
And we'll talk about that later today.
Yeah. And yes, we have some more voice search predictions from 2017 that we're going to talk about. I say yellow. I think that that the conventional search UI is not dead. I think it's changed and evolved, but I think very much there's still a lot of activity on the desktop, and search hasn't been totally transformed by voice at this point, in my view. Next slide. Okay, email and social. Email is the primary focus for small businesses, and Facebook is the #1 marketing platform. This was the prediction last year. What do you guys think, Charlie?
Yellow.
Neil?
So I think yes, that's true. I do think that there's a long way to go still on the email front, and that most of the emails I get, whether they're from large or small businesses, still lack the kind of why are they sending me this, the context, and any personalization. And there's tons of data out there to enable that stuff, It's just not being done yet. So while it remains a primary focus, I don't think it's very effective yet.
I'm not sure it's been replaced, though.
No.
Okay. Email paradoxically is very effective, but we're also deluged by spam. Next slide.
Correct.
Okay. This is kind of coming off the previous one. 2016 prediction, Facebook gets much deeper into local. They create a true local search product and offering. They promote themselves as a small business discovery tool, and they do more stuff to make it a small business CRM platform. Neil, what do you think?
I'm guessing this is yellow. I think they've made some inroads. They have the marketplace, which is sort of like a classifieds thing. My sense is, but I don't, maybe they do have a CRM platform, but I don't know.
I would go with yellow, too. I mean, it certainly has a lot more local engagement mechanisms on Facebook. I wouldn't quite describe it as a local discovery platform yet, but I think it's certainly on its way.
I agree, yellow.
Oh, look at that.
They're in the process. All right, next slide. Okay, people are looking to get away from impressions and clicks. They don't want data. They want actionable insights, and they want much more tangible metrics, store visits, sales, concrete actions that are tied to actual customer activity and value. This was the prediction last year that that's going to be a greater and greater demand for that kind of stuff. What do you guys think, Charlie?
I'd say yellow because the predictions seem to describe progress rather than full transformation. So I think it certainly hasn't fully happened, but I would say yellow.
Agree. It's
okay.
Still being pushed in that direction.
You agree, Neil? You're saying yellow?
I do agree. Yep.
And this is one where I wish there was a blue, to quote your earlier response. So I would
think
say
yellow and blue does make yellow and green does make blue.
Yes, we learned that in kindergarten. Neil.
No, it's yellow. It's yellow and blue makes green is the one. So
all right.
Yes. Now with the next slide will be the color wheel.
Would it be purple?
Okay. Blue, red, and yellow are primary colors. Green and orange and purple are secondary colors. Okay, keep going.
I think we're there.
Keep going. Next slide.
No,
Okay, location.
Yeah, we're.
Yeah. Okay, location. Did I skip over a slide?
No, yeah, because you're obsessing over colors. So here we go.
Okay. All right. Location everywhere. Geo-targeting and location become part of every single campaign. Location becomes a tool to segment audiences and do retargeting or later targeting rather than real-time geo-targeting, and it's a form of behavioral targeting for the real world. So thoughts on this one? Red, yellow, green. Neil.
I keep saying yellow. I feel sad saying yellow all the time, but this one doesn't feel like it's fully happened at the local level. Certainly progress. So I go with yellow again.
At the local level, unless it's a brand, it's closer to red, actually.
Yeah.
If it's brand, it's closer to green at the local level, but there's that, this is one where it hasn't moved all the way down to the local SMB level.
Well, there's definitely momentum here, certainly at the enterprise, and there are providers that are trying to do more tangible. Both Google and Facebook are doing more tangible kind of stuff here with ROI metrics. And so we're in yellow, definitely, but it's starting to move into the small business space.
I think the prediction may have predicted more momentum than has occurred, which might explain Neil's answer.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Next slide. Beacon adoption. Okay. Beacons everywhere. Your beacons. What do you guys think?
Well, given what I just said, sort of the spirit of the amount of progress this prediction anticipated, I might go with red. That feels a little harsh because I'm sure there's been some adoption, but just to be a little more provocative, I'll say red.
This is where we need an orange. Neil.
Orange.
Okay, orange it is. That's where I was going to, Greg. Orange.
Okay. All right, next slide. So we got here's our final 2016 prediction slide. Last year we talked about, and people predicted, that the high cost of sales in the traditional media environment was causing people to get rid of or abandon or neglect the bottom third or more of the market because it was just too expensive to service and there was not enough profit and high churn. So what do you guys think about that?
So I don't think anyone's abandoned that market. I
Yeah.
think what they're trying to do is find alternative ways to reach that market. And I think 2017, although it's not a prediction we talk about later, will be the year that we see some disruptive events occur in trying to acquire customers in that end of the market differently than most people have in the past.
Well, we're seeing a lot of reconfiguration of sales channels, and that we're going to see a lot more of that, where there's a lot more effort to address the cost of sales issue, but I don't think ever, in most cases, there's some thought to addressing the bottom third in some way that doesn't involve human beings, or certainly not direct sales activity,
Right.
where some automated intake or some auto renewal or something along those lines.
I think we're going to see it in 2017.
We'll see a lot more activity there. There's a lot more thinking going on there.
Yep.
So it hasn't been abandoned, but it's certainly, if the narrow question is it being abandoned by live sales channels, I'd say
Not yet.
Not yet, but it's certainly moving in that direction. But it's not being abandoned in terms of trying to just walk away from it.
And the second one is green, is that many people are trying to do demand gen stuff.
Right. Right.
But not into self-service offering or self-buy thing.
The bigger trend is sort of smaller, more efficient sales forces, no more cold calling, all converting warmer leads more efficiently, all of that. That's where things are moving. It's not so much abandoning the bottom third, but better segmentation.
Okay, and we're going to get into 2017 predictions now. I want to remind the audience that they can submit questions or comments. You may have comments, your own thoughts about this stuff that we'll get to when we get to the latter part of this. And I want to tell people we're going to talk about LSA 17 at the end, but we have a lot of sales-related content and sessions where these issues will be talked about, as well as product stuff. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is for you guys.
All right. So part of this exercise in developing this little talk today was taking all the predictions that were submitted to LSA and trying to find some sort of organizing principle for them, and sort of dividing them into trends or themes that we discern from all the different predictions. And we sort of landed on these 5, and we'll go through each of them one by one rather than sort of talk about them each here. So we sort of organize these things into 5 broader themes that we think define this year's batch of predictions. So why don't we just start with the first one. All right. Well, I'll just, if you want, I can just.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So the idea here is that, and I think this is part of a bigger trend that's been happening for a long time, this notion that what once was only available to the enterprise becomes available to the small business, and I think cloud-based tools are certainly driving that forward, and we're certainly seeing more and more activity here, more and more interest here. We're sort of using, and that ranges, you can see we picked out in each case a handful of predictions that sort of reflect this particular theme. So, a lot more, analytics and data available, at the top of the market, sort of being more available downstream, different technologies being enabled downstream, et cetera, et cetera.
I think we're going to see a lot of this. I think it's going to require a couple things to drive it, though, and I think it's going to require really, really good marketing on the part of whoever's selling this down at the local level. The value proposition has got to be really simple to understand, and I think the economics are going to be the ultimate driver. Greg and I were having a discussion a couple weeks ago about sort of Gusto, which is a platform for managing HR versus some of the traditional providers like Paychex and ADP, and the economics are just so compelling on the Gusto side that we're going to see all this stuff sort of move downstream because the economics are just so compelling.
And also, again, these enable, sometimes it's not a switching thing as so much as actually using things for the first time.
Right. I just shared with Greg and Charles a note about Sage, which is a accounting software for SMEs that's integrating a chatbot into their platform so that users of that software can better understand how to use it and, I guess, how to do accounting. So we're seeing this stuff happen all over the place. And I think this is of the trends, I think this one is we're going to see tremendous activity on as all this stuff moves downstream.
And also there's a movement, again, part of this is the shift from SMBs, marketing and advertising being the primary focus to being much more focused on business operations and tools to manage customers and all that.
Or a better integration of operational tools and marketing, right? So somebody made a comment about email being too spammy and not being used by certain demographic segments. But if you can personalize the email, if you can tie email into different audience segments and really do a better job of targeting those messages, it could be more effective. And that's part of what this combination of marketing and business operational CRM, point of sale tools is. That's the Square platform with CRM integration or email marketing integration to their customer data.
Totally.
So
if you go to the next slide, Joe, we did a quick estimate of what the CRM market for SMEs could be. This is using a couple data sources that, it's somewhere in a couple years will be probably north of $2 billion. And that's just CRM. If you add in sort of the HR platforms, the marketing stack, the point of sale stack, the accounting stack, the connectivity stack, all these things that really allow an SMB to manage their business in a whole different way than they used to do it, there's a tremendous amount of money at stake. Tremendous amount.
Well, the other thing here that strikes me in looking at this slide is that there's this is an opportunity for people who aren't currently in this market. If you're doing certain things around marketing and advertising, and you can create a viable CRM tool, acquire one, partner with one, then that expands your share of wallet. And it also represents a certain kind of defense against churn in some of these situations as well.
The flip side of that is that there's an opportunity for those at the other end of the spectrum to move into marketing and advertising and other things.
Oh, for sure. That's
I think
exactly
we're
right.
already seeing that. If you look at some of the sites out there like Clover, which is First Data's sort of new version of the point of sale platform, they're very clearly starting to test their ability to walk into the marketing, let's call it silo, but the marketing area for their customers. And so we're going to see a lot of this over the next year or a couple years. It will be about churn, it'll be about wallet share, it'll be about simplicity of offer. Those are the things that are going to drive it.
So I think,
okay, so let's move.
Go ahead.
Let's move on to the next slide. Yeah. So Neil or Charlie, you want to take this one?
Neil, why don't you?
Sure. This was the hottest thing at CES this year. I think that we're going to see, somebody's typing, I don't know who's typing, it's not me. We're going to see tremendous changes in how people access information. I've been doing because I'm interested in it, I've been doing a bunch of searches on my Echo. We call ours Echo, not Alexa. Apparently now you can call an Alexa computer as well. But, and the results are amazingly good.
That's only if you use a Scottish accent, though.
Can you call it Steve?
Go ahead. Exactly, Greg. So clearly this is going to change the whole search paradigm over the next couple of years. What will be behind those results? Who's going to put the results back there? How will merchants and SMBs make sure that their results get into that? What's the visualization of those results? All that stuff is going to be complex. Somebody's going to have to simplify it. And right now it seems like, certainly for now, at Amazon and whoever they're using for those results are in the lead or pole position, and the opportunity for transactions becomes really interesting. So you get attribution and transaction in one platform ultimately.
I totally agree with what you're saying, and I think that right now there have been some third-party estimates that put the number of these devices at about almost 9 million when you combine Echo devices, Echo Dot, and the main Echo speaker that we're looking at here, and then the Google Home devices. And Cortana now has an API strategy where third parties can build Cortana into their devices, and Apple's supposed to be developing something as a standalone kind of virtual assistant. So we will see these devices used for a range of capabilities. And the question is, how broadly are they used? Are they used for a few things? Andrew Shotland was exchanging some comments on Twitter with me today, where he said, people listen to to music and check the weather. So he's a sort of a skeptic. But I think store hours, I think transactions are definitely in the mix here. Ordering food, making phone calls, interacting with small businesses through the phone. I think we're going to see a whole range of things.
I also think that as the car technology gets better, some of what we'll do in our car will then bleed over into our other places of existence. So, voice assistant stuff in car will drive voice assistant activity in other places. And so
right. And I think
that's an adoption driver for these in-home assistants.
It'll go both ways, right?
Well, I think there's a behavior. I think that Siri introduced the virtual assistant, and then Google sort of beefed up those capabilities, and Amazon is also training people to speak to their devices. And so all of these things feed on one another, and what we're going to see in the aggregate is an increase in the use of voice search, and this kind of interaction. And it'll take, as you guys are saying, it's going to be through the car, it's going to be on your smartphone, it's going to be through these standalone devices, and ultimately, voice-enabled appliances in one form or another.
So
turn on the lights.
What does this do to Google's search advertising business? Search marketing. I mean, how disruptive is this potentially to the business model for local search?
At this point, it's marginally disruptive. I mean, I think we're going to see monetization show up in the form of some transactional model, but also maybe we'll hear, like on Pandora or other services, you'll hear an audio ad. And it might be the case that if you do a local search and they will read you 3 listings, I need to find an electrician, the first one might be sponsored listing, blah, 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 and then on to the, we might see something like that, which is a mirror of the AdWords model.
Well, kind of a constrained inventory, though. It's kind of a constrained inventory.
For sure.
Yeah. But also, am I going to want to listen to something that's a sponsored, what will my trade be?
Right, because in Pandora, you're getting music in exchange for that occasional ad, and that's a trade. Either you're willing to make or you buy the premium version. Here, I'm not sure what. My
guess it has a chance to be highly disruptive to the AdWords business, the search engine marketing business.
Yeah, maybe not 2017, but the longer term.
Yep.
Well, an interesting related point, and then we should move on to the next one.
We have a slide too, if you want. Next slide, Joe. It's on.
Oh, I see. Yes, thank you. So this is a ComScore estimate. Half of searches will be initiated by voice by 2020. Whether or not that's exactly correct, it's certainly directionally correct. But an interesting study was done by Stone Temple Consulting recently. It was a survey, and one of the findings about voice search and virtual assistants, and one of the findings that was most interesting to me was that I think it was over 60%. It may be in one of these slides. I don't remember. Over 60% of, no, that was a presentation I gave yesterday at a conference. Okay, I'm sorry. Today is Thursday.
Today is the 26th of January.
Yes, thank you. 60% of respondents wanted a single answer. They didn't want to see a conventional list of search results. They wanted a single answer. Now, people have been talking about that for a long time. Answers, not links. Answers, not links. But this form factor is quite different than, even a smartphone. And so that is the thing that's really disruptive, is that
so in other words, your idea of the 3 responses, you have these 3 choices, no one wants that. They just give me one choice.
So that says that reviews and ratings could be hugely even more important, because how is the machine going to arbitrate what result to push up?
The highest rated.
Right, that's the algorithm.
Right. It's going to be rating, and it's going to be distance, if distance matters in that particular search category. or
There may be
search.
some
So
other
I think
influencing factors, but yeah.
I think we can agree that there's some interesting disruptive potential here, and we don't know exactly what form that's going to take, but there's definitely a real phenomenon here, and marketers, publishers really this is something you need to pay attention to and get out in front of, and not wait until there's 20 million or 30 million of these devices, because I think they'll be behind the curve then. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, location, attribution, and closing the loop. This is all about the notion of, sort of getting to that holy grail of attribution. We've got a bunch of different predictions here. Technology is making discovery easier. Basically, just this whole notion of getting to full attribution. With location, technology, and other things. At one point, I think, sort of skipping ahead I think the thing attribution gets to is this notion of once you have true attribution, you have great efficiency, which leads to a lot of which makes it possible to sort of evaluate the advertising that's not delivering more effectively. So it could lead to a lot more efficient spending among advertisers over time, and that could have some disruptive impacts as well.
So if this does happen, okay, if you can do attribution, this means that advertising and marketing can be bought and doesn't need to be sold. And this goes back to sort of that thing we talked about from last year's prediction about these buying platforms potentially growing and being deployed, because now there's full transparency.
Well, that sort of becomes a commodity. I mean, if it's...
Well, it may not become a commodity, but it becomes easily understood, and the metrics are very clear, and if you want X number of people to come through your door, you'll pay me this amount of money, and boom. And so I believe these things ultimately can be, it was always said, well, advertising is sold, not bought. I think all this stuff leads to advertising being able to be bought and not sold.
Well, the commodity comment comes to just where you're not really differentiating the source. It's just the performance is all you're purchasing.
Right.
So let me push back on
I don't
that.
think we're there yet, by the way. But,
yeah. Let me push back. I've got two comments. So I think that the market is not totally transparent, which goes against the sort of commodity notion. There are certain brands that have more attention and more visibility, and that's going to matter. Google and Facebook in particular, and so it's going to be harder for smaller players to get attention and get share of wallet and mind share. But if there is, and then we also assume that the analytics, that the metrics are accurate, and that people can make the right decisions on the basis of that. So AI and machine learning and all those sort of back-end capabilities will assist. And so I agree that directionally, Neil, you're right, that if people get more insight into what's working, then they can buy it themselves and they can do self-service. But I think there's a lot of execution stuff here that, it still makes this a little bit of a challenge.
I don't think it's 2017.
Be clear about self-buying versus self-service. Self-buying is I can buy it. I'm not going to implement it. I'm not going to fulfill this stuff. I think self-buying is much closer than self-service.
Yeah, but think about why people are on Facebook. So why are all these businesses on Facebook? It's not because they have some clean ROI and they can do this sort of one-to-one lead mapping to their ads. I mean, Facebook is trying to do more and more of that, but they're buying Facebook because everybody's on Facebook. Their competitors are on Facebook. It's the hot platform, and they have this sort of intuitive sense of it, and they can also sort of see that it's a place where a lot of people are. So it's sort of analogous to the old, sort of Yellow Pages, everybody's in there, I got to be in there or I'm not visible, or Google, that's how people felt about, search SEO and SEM to a lesser degree. And so it's not a totally rational thing based on data. It's much more of a seat of the pants thing for a lot of these business owners.
Right, but what if the attribution were transparent and at some point, then will the rationale for these sort of somewhat softer decisions for advertising purchases go away? Will decisions be made purely on performance? I guess you're saying that. You're saying, Greg, there's always going to be some rationale for the the more branding and presence and I got to be there decisions.
Irrational.
Or whatever.
Yeah, it's more of an irrational. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, I do think that this will happen. I do think that the more that there is transparency and the more that these actions can be linked to media buys or boosted posts or whatever, that we will see a migration of money toward those things. Now, the challenge for everybody who's not Google and Facebook is going to be, how do I match those capabilities? You know, Facebook has the #1 app. They know when people go into stores. You know, they can say, this ad drove so many people to your store. Google is doing the same kind of thing. They've got Android. They've got all these capabilities. If you're a smaller player and you can't deliver those kinds of analytics, you're either going to have to partner with somebody who can, or get involved in CRM, or you're going to have to do something, because it's not going to be good enough for you simply to say,
right,
we can give you traffic.
Yeah, you're going to be delivering the tools, or you're going to be putting these campaigns together. You're not necessarily going there's be different roles to play, but I mean, we're not here yet, and also not all actions are as easily ascribed to purchases.
That's right. Absolutely. There's the whole, you know, Google was criticized by Microsoft, among others, for this last click attribution thing. People would go to Google when they were at a certain point in the buying process, look for the brand or look for the store, then the click would deliver them to the you know, and then the marketer would say, well, Google is responsible for that sale because that's where they came from. Now, people have gotten much more sophisticated in the intervening years, but there's still a bit of that problem. I mean, consumers use, you know, 3 to 10 or more sources depending on the category,
right.
And so it's fundamentally difficult. In the case of like an auto dealer, you know, somebody may be on YouTube and search and so on and so forth, and it may be very difficult to actually get that kind of transparency.
Right. Can you track each contributor to that sale and sort of allocate the attribution? You know, that gets into a lot of complexity.
Right.
So yeah, so this is not, but I think, you know, theoretically at least, you can get to a high degree of efficiency where a business would need to spend less to acquire customers, and so that has implications for media spending.
I think there'll be lots of improvement on this stuff. I still think it won't get all the way.
No, I don't think this year. No.
It'll never get all the way. It'll never get all the way. I mean, but it's going to get closer and closer. But there'll always be this judgmental gap.
Right.
There'll always be a place for judgment, but we're going to get lots closer to it. I'm curious, Greg or Charlie, what you guys think about the bottom one about what people watch on TV and the attribute searches. You know.
Yeah, so that's a paraphrase, I think, and maybe sort of there's maybe some words left out out of that. That can be done today. So Place IQ, Ninth Decimal, and a couple of others are mapping TV advertising to store visits today. So I mean, it's not widespread, but it's happening. It's possible. So for example, you can, you know, if there's a set-top box and there's an IP kind of connection there, you can capture, you know, what shows that somebody watched, you know, and then what ads were shown during those shows. And so Target, they advertise during XYZ program. Somebody from my household goes into the store. I can do a kind of correlation and do some inferences that suggest that that ad had some influence on my, you know, my visit to the store. I mean, you have to do some analysis that sort
correlation,
of, you know,
not causality.
Yeah, you do control and expose stuff, but this is possible today, and then you can get a sense of where are my customers and prospects, what TV shows are they watching, and where should I be directing my TV ad dollars, which I think is really interesting and radical, you know, along these lines. So let's move on to the next.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next slide. And before we talk about it, quick comment from somebody about Alexa. They say, if Alexa dominates voice search, it will definitely disrupt Google's business. Just an interesting editorial comment there. So go ahead.
Somebody agrees with me. Yeah, good to hear.
Neil,
it's probably you. You probably wrote that, Neil, didn't you?
I probably did.
Yeah.
Just wanted to hear myself agree with myself. So video, you know, video's been talked about. You know, it was mobile. That 5 years ago, everything was going to be mobile. A couple of years ago, everything was going to be video. I think what we're seeing in the video stuff is that there's just a ton of money rushing in to make video more easily built, more easily deployed, more compelling, and most importantly, more compelling and tied to real stories. You know, videos that just sort of display stuff that don't tell a story, I don't think are going to be that's not going to change the game. But like Greg shared a video today, obviously high quality, very high quality with Charlie and me, but you know, it was the story
it's a
compelling piece.
But that's a professional.
Yeah, so
Yes, I know that, but I think what I'm saying is we're going to see that kind of ability to tell stories go down market using AI, using technology that really tells a story that rather than just a pure sort of montage of images.
Okay.
And
So the other thing to keep in mind here is that video is one of the true cross-platform formats, right? It's one that consumers are interested in. When you ask consumers about what do you think about mobile advertising, video is one format that they're most receptive to. It's something that you can do for TV. It's something you can do for over-the-top, you know, programming and on the PC. So it has that virtue as well.
Well, the case for video is really strong, and ranking, engagement, all kinds of reasons to do video. I guess I'm struggling to see, even with better tools to produce video, very average small businesses creating their own videos that are effective.
they're not going to do it themselves. Yeah. They're going to have somebody do it.
Right, but that's still a gating factor because platform, there's still a storyteller involved in creating that video. I just think that's a gating factor for widespread adoption among small businesses.
There'll be storytelling platforms that do a lot of it.
Well, there's two sort of ways to think about this. One is sort of a traditional TV commercial or a story, and then the other way is a kind of like just informational video, right? Which may not be exactly follow the same sort of storytelling arc, and in my mind, it's a question of how widespread it becomes. So you always find outliers or early adopters among small businesses that are clever, that are taking advantage of, you know, that are presenting sort of FAQs or how-to information on YouTube, and they're having success. But is that going to penetrate, you know, broadly, and will businesses do that kind of thing themselves? That's the question in my mind.
I mean, I think we'll see a lot more, but I think there's a limit to small business adoption of video. And also, I wonder, we'll see.
I think there are other use cases of video that are going to be really interesting too. I was talking to
aftermarket is a great use. You know,
what's that?
Aftermarket, after-sale support's a great use for video.
Well, and think about all the dashboards that have been built in this sort of local industry that nobody ever looks at. Imagine sort of using video as the experience to surface that dashboard information that nobody actually goes to. I think there's something really interesting there. So there are a lot of use cases that go beyond just displaying a business's story using video that's going to affect this.
Yeah, I think, granted. And also we'll see sort of a little bit of a diversion, but we'll see more people creating videos with their phones for example, for submitting bids. We're already seeing that for, you get a car accident, you take a picture and you submit it, but if you want to have your house remodeled, do a little quickie self-video, submit that for Contra. We're seeing that already. I mean, there's businesses out there building that.
Look, I use video so I know where I left my car in the parking lot now.
Okay. Next slide. So we have a do this one quickly, Neil.
Yeah, I'll do it quickly. It's just Zenith has a estimate out there that in 2015 U.S. online video market was $8.5 billion. If you forecast that out at 20% a year, which seems reasonable, it's a very large industry just in the U.S. You put this outside of the U.S. and it's another, you probably double that number. So pretty significant opportunity.
Right. So I would just caution that these market size estimates are fairly casual, but they're designed to illustrate the opportunity and the size of the potential market.
Correct.
Okay. So next slide.
All right. Consideration, consternation, consolidation. A few different moving parts here, but I think one of the things that I would observe around this notion is, yeah, we're going to see, there's always consolidation looming. You know, that's always, I think there's a possibility in a number of sectors for consolidation. But I think another thing we're seeing is, you know, as we talk about all these different platforms and solutions, I think there's an opportunity for platforms to rationalize all these different solutions for small businesses and bring them into one place that makes sense, you know, where they can purchase through one platform that integrates a bunch of solutions, provide some reporting across all of those solutions, et cetera. There's certainly an opportunity, there's always an opportunity to make things simpler and for small businesses because they're not going to buy 10-point solutions. But they might buy one place where they can, you know, get a rationalized, consolidated solution that brings in all these different things. I think we're seeing some developments there. What would you add, Neil?
Well, I would say that I think there's going to be, it can go either way. It can go both ways there. I think the logic is that it consolidates and there's a suite. What goes against the logic is that then it becomes perhaps too complex to understand. So I think what we're going to see is point solutions first get adopted. And then as people feel comfortable with that, there'll be these suites that develop. Because the value proposition, to get these small businesses, these merchants doing these things requires a very clear value proposition and simple value proposition. But then over time, as we talked about earlier, those stacks, those marketing stacks, I think will grow and evolve, and then they become suites. But to get them in the door,
the point solution that has the highest level of stickiness, engagement, whatever you say, you know.
Right, and then you lace
that one has the opportunity to lace in all the other solutions. Right. And then it has to be done in an intelligent way where you're not just shoving a box at the small business, but they're sort of adapting things as they make sense for that business.
And you're solving a real need. You're solving a real need. And I don't. So if you think about that, you know, a lot of these that you see out there, even a company like Gusto, they've got 40,000 customers, which is a lot in this space. I mean, you think about things like Signpost and some of those companies, they have, you know, south of 10,000 customers. You know, when they start to get into 15 and 20, I think is when you're going to see the consolidation, and those properties become really attractive. When Demandforce was bought, I think they had 15,000 customers. So that seems to be like maybe a benchmark number when we're either going to see consolidation or acquisition of some of these platforms. What were you going to say?
So one comment I would make, and then we should move on to the next slide, is the scope. I mean, this was alluded to, the scope of the product, right? I mean, I think, you know, if you have too much, if you're trying to do too much, it might dilute the value of any particular aspect of what you're doing. It might also become unwieldy. But there is this sort of need to offer more value than just maybe a single solution on something. So there's some tension there, and companies have to make decisions about how narrow or how broad their product suite goes, and that's where I think a lot of the execution wins and losses will happen in this arena.
Yeah, but I think to Neil's point, I think it is you start with one and you build from there. I think if you just shove a box of 10 things at a small business, they'll recoil.
Square is a classic example, right? Simple point of sale system, easy to adopt, and then now they're doing a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Next slide. Okay, so we're sort of through the meat of the predictions here. We can have some discussion now. If there are people who have comments or questions, we can respond to those or offer any sort of final thoughts. But what we wanted to do is just let you know that you know, if you haven't signed up yet, you should definitely sign up for LSA 17. This is a list of sponsors and exhibitors. We're going to have great sessions, great networking. So we'll all be there on this call. I'm excited about it. So hopefully you guys will show up and engage with us and challenge us and be part of the conversation. Next slide. This is just an illustration of some of the forward-looking sessions. We've got a ton of sessions, but here's a sort of a representation of those that are addressing these questions of future product development, sales, small business demand, tools and services. And we've got a number of sessions this time that are really dealing with kind of what's behind the product, the organizational dynamics, the culture, how do you innovate, how do you get employees to be more engaged, how do you keep keep people from being complacent and getting sort of stuck in this very dynamic environment that we're in. So, we're talking about voice, we're talking about sales, we're talking about enterprise issues, localizing. So we're going to have some interesting discussion of next generation marketing platforms. And then the final session is how do you meet your business goals and at the same time prepare for the future, stay in front of technology. So a lot of challenging topics, and hopefully you guys will be there. Next slide.
Look forward to it.
Yes. And then, again, you can download this. You can see all these predictions in detail and who wrote them. You can get the document there. It's free. You just have to register. Thanks for your contributions. There's a lot of fascinating stuff here that has a material impact on everybody. This is real stuff. We're going to be talking more about it at LSA 17, so hopefully you'll join us there. And have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.